Students are being turfed out, apparently, of luxury accommodation just before the start of their academic year to make way for asylum seekers so they can live there rent-free. The Home Office is reportedly looking to move asylum seekers into a 405-bed student block in Huddersfield that features, get this, a cinema room and a gym. Of course it does. It would normally cost £10,000 a year to live there, and some students who had already signed contracts to live there now, reportedly, have about a week to find somewhere else to live. Rooms range from £200 a week platinum studio flats, which has its own fully furnished kitchenette, ensuite bathrooms, bed, study area, waterside canal views, to a smaller bronze room, which is just a cool £135 a week. Look, surely I cannot be the only person who thinks it's unfair to give priority housing to young men from goodness knows where ahead of 18-year-old students. And today is also the day for genuine Afghan refugees who have been living in hotels to be booted out of those hotels and potentially made homeless, no doubt to make way for more Channel migrants who in all likelihood didn't help our troops fight the Taliban. Again, surely I cannot be the only person who thinks that prioritising a group of people that we've ended up allowing to just enter this country would actually be a bit of a problem, given the fact that we've turfed out a load of people who potentially helped us as well. But I suppose none of this really matters, does it, as long as we keep rolling out the red carpet for those coming across the channel. I believe that we can now speak to Mike Jones, who is the Executive Director at Migration Watch. Mike, I'm going to talk to you initially about what's been going on supposedly at some student accommodation in Huddersfield. So, I mean, look, this is going to be a recipe for disaster, is it not? That you end up with a load of, you know, probably young men coming across here, living in luxury student accommodation in an area where we know it's probably going to be populated by, you know, young, intoxicated people enjoying their first forays into university life. I mean, I can't see any problems happening here.
Yeah, I mean, first thing I'll say, Patrick, is I feel absolutely devastated for the students. Essentially, they're paying the price for the government's over-reliance on private sector accommodation. They're paying the price for an asylum system that's completely out of control. And you have hardworking students, they've got the grades, they've taken out the loan, they've, you know, made the deposits, signed the tenancy agreements, but they're being gazumped at the last minute by the Home Office, who are using their accommodation to house illegal economic migrants. And I feel this on a personal level because as a former PhD student, I spent a lot of time in higher education. And one of the appeals of HE is living in a communal environment with other students, leading an independent life, being within walking or busing distance from the campus and, you know, integrating yourself in campus culture. And that opportunity is being denied to these students.
I just think it's absolutely ridiculous, though, isn't it, really, that you'd end up with a luxury housing block, students who have probably gone through our education system, in all likelihood, gone through our education system, even if they've not, to be fair. They're people from other countries who've worked hard to get here. They've taken their exams. They've probably taken out a student loan. Some of them reportedly have taken out tenancy agreements already. They've got about a week or so to go before the start of the new academic year. And then wallop, all of a sudden, it turns out that we're rolling out the red carpet yet again for people who we quite possibly don't know who they are or where they're from.
Well, we live in a topsy-turvy country where people who play by the rules are punished and lawbreakers rewarded. And that's completely unethical. Essentially, the students who have been turfed out at the last minute, they'll have to find alternative means of accommodation. Some of them will go into the private sector and they'll be sharing accommodation with non-students, which is not ideal for them. Some may decide to stay at home with their parents, and that can be very isolating. You know, it's difficult to go to university for the first time when you don't know anyone. And, you know, it's absolutely essential that they're living in student accommodation with other students. And, of course, this imposes a huge burden on the taxpayer. You know, we're spending well over $6 million a day on housing these illegal economic migrants in accommodation. And the cost of the asylum system is now close to $4 billion. So it's an absolute disgrace.
I mean, the one fascinating thing will be, I've been talking about this for ages, a lot of people who hold up the refugees welcome banners, their lives are not touched by the asylum seeker crisis. They are not impacted upon negatively. You know, people don't end up living in an area where there is a mass dumping of people and their local services aren't affected. But now it is starting to happen, and it will start to happen in every single person's walk of life. And we're going to see it now with the student community as well. And I think people are going to, unfortunately, learn some very stark lessons. This is a recipe for disaster, where you are going to have young people enjoying a Student Freshers Week, potentially getting themselves into a little bit of trouble and vulnerable situations through drink, etc. And then you're going to find themselves plonked in the middle of a brand new asylum seeker complex. I think it's absolutely outrageous. I think as well, another side of this that, again, I do find utterly disgusting is that we've got genuine Afghan asylum seekers here who helped British troops during the war, who've been in hotels, who we are now turfing out, potentially in some cases making homeless, so that we can use those hotels for more asylum seekers who've just come across the channel. That, again, is a recipe for disaster. You know, we tell these people we're going to make your country better. We hand it back to the Taliban. We say we'll give you sanctuary. Then we make them homeless. I mean, what are we doing?
Well, you know, ultimately we have a housing crisis. There are various reasons for this, and we don't have the time to go into each and every one. But essentially, there's a sort of supply side and demand side issue here. Yes, we have restrictive planning laws, but we also have large-scale immigration, which has taken place over many years. This has increased the value of property, it's increased rents, and you know, ultimately, it's imposing a huge burden on the younger generation, who are spending an enormous amount of disposable income.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's absolutely ludicrous.